For 91 main event, we got Cody Rhodes vs Randy Orton with Pat McAfee for the Undisputed Championship. This all happened when Cody took the title from Drew, ending his reign and becoming a three-time Undisputed Champion, which I didn't like, honestly. Then he taps into the voices in Randy's head, and Randy then turns heel, which then gets us intrigued for this match and this feud. Randy destroys Cody Rhodes, leaves him bloodied and bruised and battered and busted open, uses a steel chair to hit him, sits down with the Undisputed title. I mean, this photo was trending all over social media. Then the follow-up was underwhelming. I mean, they just started brawling and brawling and brawling. Randy was even looking weaker. It's just triple fraud protecting his golden boy. Security came in to separate them, which was stupid to me, honestly. Like, bruh, what's with this security? Jelly Roll then becomes a victim of the RKO, the three most dangerous letters of all of sports entertainment. And Randy dips, with a smile on his face, while Jelly is knocked out cold. And Cody then stares at him. I mean, these two were once mentor and students. I mean, there's just so much history that they haven't tapped into. Then Randy appears on Raw and he's on a phone call with someone who reminds him who he really is, that he's a killer. Then he says wrestling has more than one royal family. Then, he appears on SmackDown, says that he's gonna take the Undisputed title from Cody Rhodes and make sure he leaves Vegas empty freaking handed. Then Cody comes in, they brawl, at St. Louis, which is Randy's hometown. Pat comes in and helps Randy, hit him with a low blow. Then, he starts cutting a promo saying that the show, the business he used to love while growing up is no longer what it used to be. Called Nick Aldis, Timu, Adam Pierce, called them two forces, him and the security. Said that he didn't like the attitude there no more. What? And the crowd was going, what? Or he didn't like the, if you smell what the rock is cooking. Then he said that tickets are still available even when Randy Orton is around, that he's been seeing 5 people go at it in an Iron Man match. He says that Cody is a puppet champion, that Randy should kick his ass. Then he said that Randy is gonna get 15, that SmackDown's world rated show ever, and that Cody's lead, hasn't been good, and that Randy's gonna save the fucking business, and the business is leading is terrible. Cody then transfers his aggression on Keith Wilson, who is even better than him at this point, and says that he's been hearing the voices in his head and that we don't want to hear what they have to say, and drops the mic. I mean, nothing much here. Then we get a segment with him and Stephanie and Madison Square Garden. Stephanie, says that Dusty could roll with the best, but Cody is not his father, which is Dusty Rhodes. Then Cody says that with all due respect, Stephanie McMahon, you're not yours either, which is Vince McMahon, and the crowd pops for both of them, they react, then she slaps the taste out of his mouth, and then she tells him that this will be the last time he ever enters WrestleMania with the Undisputed title. Then Cody grabs her and says, I got 2 words for you. The crowd will say, suck it. And he said he disappointed them and said, thank you. So that's all so far. It's nothing much. Then we got the second match, Stephanie Baguette vs. Liv Morgan, for the women's world title. Liv, after winning the Rumble, she kept us waiting. We all knew she was going to choose Stephanie. Some people were thinking she was going to choose Jade. I mean, why would you think that? Then Stephanie told her that if you choose me, you ain't gonna win. Like, I'm gonna beat your ass at Mania. She even made her cry. I mean, Dom was the translator in this segment. Then they had the other segment where Liv, says that she could give her her shirt, which says all girls go for Daddy Dom, but looking at her, she's not worthy of it. Then, she told her that she can cry, the fact that she hasn't chosen her, and calls her a puta. Stephanie slaps the taste out of Dom's mouth. Then the moment which Liv, locks eyes with Jade, then she sucker punches Stephanie, drops her. I mean, start beating the crap out of her. We all knew she was gonna choose Stephanie Vaquer. Hit out the Oblivion, stand tall with the Women's World Championship. I mean, nothing much has happened so far. Honestly, this was just the starting point, but it wasn't good. Then she got a video promo segment, says she's coming for the title. Stephanie says she's gonna still retain the title, and she's still gonna become the women's world champion. Well, whoever holds the title, they should just know this, that Naomi, when she returns, is gonna take it from them. But anyway, I digress. Then we got another segment where Stephanie jumps Liv from behind, and Liv, and her brawl. And Liv was ragdolling the shit out of Stephanie. I won't lie. I mean, bruh. They even went to Gorilla and were brawling. Then, Stephanie got the upper hand. Security came to separate them. Liv was just screaming. Then Liv cut a promo where she mentions Stephanie's mother and speaks in Latin or Spanish, and the crowd reacts. Then her and Stephanie brawl, they brawl it out. Then Roxanne comes in and, like, Stephanie gets her number. Liv drops her again with the Oblivion. Then Liv was thanking Roxanne for helping her against Stephanie. Stephanie comes to attack them both, shoves them into each other's head, shoves. Bruh, this spot was crazy. Carries Liv and shoves her into the TV screen at the Judgment Day clubhouse, and the screen breaks. And then, she speaks Spanish, and then she walks away. So this got me interested to see what happens next in this match. So that's all we've gotten so far. Then the other feud, Seth Rollins versus Gunther, which was made official recently. I mean, this was all because Paul Heyman turned on Seth and joined Braun Breaker and Braun Street, and Seth had been wanting to make him pay. Then Gunther, out of nowhere, the person who retired Styles and Goldberg and Cena, doesn't have a plan, so they just throw him to Seth, and him and Seth now are going at it at Mania. No career on the line, nothing. I mean, then the second segment, they brawl. I mean, it's all been brawls, nothing much. Then Gunther, beats him and walks away. Then they meet again. Rollins tries to put him in a sleeper hole. Gunther fights back. They fight. Security comes in. Man, what's with all this security, man? Just let them fight. Give the fans what they want, man. Then, Gunther hits him with a cheap shot, boot to the face or sneakers to the face. And the crowd is just reacting, mixed reactions everywhere, you know. Then they separate them. Then Gunther tells Paul Heyman that he owes him more than a thank you. I mean, Paul Heyman can't catch a break. WrestleMania 41, he owed Seth Rollins and CM Punk a favor and betrayed Roman Reigns and betrayed Punk and joined Seth. So let's see how it all turns out. Then the other match, AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch for the women's IC title. I mean, these two, it all started, when AJ and Punk fought against Becky and Seth. But moving on, I mean, that one has been done. AJ, said that she won't fight Becky unless she puts her women's IC title on the line, which Becky then puts on the line and says that she has no idea what's coming for her and walks away. Then we get another segment where there the two of them are going at it, and AJ said Becky should hit her, but Becky refuses. Then we get to the match elimination chamber, in which AJ makes Becky tap and becomes the new women's intercontinental champion. I mean, it was a good time for her. It was a good time for her fans, the pyros and all. Then Becky returns, and attacks her, beats the crap out of her everywhere, you know. Then obviously security comes in. Becky hits her with the title and stands tall. Then AJ Lee, throws shot at Becky and her family, says that she's Becky's daughter favorite wrestler. The crowd reacts. Then she challenges Becky at Mania, says she will put the IC title on the line. Becky says that AJ, like, was gone for a decade, and that she will make sure that she will end her at Mania and no one will ever have to hear about her again. So yeah, that's all we got. Yeah, at I think it was MSG. Yeah. Then the last segment they had, AJ repeated the same thing. After telling Becky to shut up, says that when she talks to her daughter in bed, she should ask her who her favorite wrestler is, and the daughter will say it's AJ Lee. Then she tells her she will see her at Mania, you know. And Becky gets mad. So let's see how the match turns out. Yeah. Then we got this other match, the Irresistible Forces versus Alexa versus Belaria versus the Bella Twins. The Irresistible Forces, Nia and Lash defeated Rio, Rio and Yosuke, and captured the women's tag team titles from them on SmackDown. Then, you know, it's all been bros. There's no story in any of these matches I've mentioned, especially this one. Brawl after brawl after brawl after brawl after brawl after brawl. Everyone wants the Irresistible Forces tag team gold. The Irresistible Forces, at times they stand tall, other times they don't. I mean, it was just a throw-in match, like, or should I say a throw-away match just to occupy the card at Mania. Then, there's no story. There's no build. It's all just brawls. I've repeated the word brawl like a number of times now. They brought on Raw, they brought on SmackDown. The other women's tag team joined forces against the women's tag team champs. Bruh, DQ after DQ, you know. Okay, where was I? Oh, yeah. It's just been the same thing, rinse and repeat for most of these matches and feuds and segments. Brawl after brawl after brawl after brawl. It gets tiring at times. It really does. For sure. Then, the last segment, the Irresistible Forces stand tall with the women's tag titles. Then we got this match, Drew McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu, an unsanctioned match. It all started when, Fatu cost Drew the undisputed title by interfering in the match. Although it has been way back, like way before, the fact that Fatu got attacked by a mystery attacker who we still don't know, and he's been blaming Drew for it, and he cost Drew his undisputed title and his spot at WrestleMania, Then Drew said he quits the company only for him to return and get revenge on Fatu, costing him his match against Trick Williams. It's just the same thing. Nothing makes sense. Like, nothing does. Then, after Trick beats Fatu, Drew attacks him with a claymore. Man, I love that move. I gotta give it to Drew. Stands tall with the undisputed. He stands tall and he brings the thumbs down. Then we get this accident where Drew attacks Fatu, breaks his windshield and drags him out of his car and starts beating the crap out of him. Leaves him bloodied, as security comes to separate them. Then, he says that Fatu took his spot, and now he's not like gonna main event night one of Mania, because of Fatu, and they brawl. Security still comes in. Screw this security, man. I know they are doing their job, but it gets too much. Like, let them have it. Let them fight each other. Fatu fights back. Drew fights. He sends Drew into the ring post, into the steel steps. He headbutts him. Bruh, this dude is unhinged. Not just that, he puts him through the table. And the crowd is just chanting, Fatu, Fatu, Fatu. They were even booing Drew McIntyre. I love Drew, but the way I see it, they are likely to hand the win over to Fatu at Mania. Then they fight, on top of a building, and Nick and the other security are trying to go and stop them, but they can't. And they fall from the building, both of them. Then Fatu says that he's gonna kick Drew's ass, as long as he wants. Drew says that Fatu cost him everything, and he's gonna make him pay. Then he says that the food that he's talking about that he puts in his kids' mouth, that's his damn food. Then he says, screw your kids. I mean, bruh, it was crazy, man. They got this, then shows up, says that you both have been a liability to the company as well as yourselves. Then it's gonna be an unsanctioned match, at WrestleMania. WWE won't have any responsibility for what happens to the both of you. Then Drew says that Fatu is a criminal, he's a convict and he's going to expose him. Then we get the last match, the Usos and Elena versus Astro Speed and Division. Like, this is just the funniest addition to WrestleMania 42 Night 1. It all started when, Division fought against the Usos, trying to win the tag titles. And LA comes, to attack Logan Paul, beats the crap out of him. Speed grabs the brass knuckles, punches him with it. I mean, bruh, it was so damn funny. Then the Usos, like, they lose. I mean, Logan Paul punches Jimmy with the brass. Jay, attacks Logan, and Theory places his hand on top of Jimmy. The ref counts to 3, and new World Tag Team Champions. I knew this was going to happen. And it's all thanks to Astro Speed. LA Knight then stalks Astro Speed and enters into his house and starts saying, "Make me laugh, Speed, chat, yeah." Yeah, Speed was trying to come clean, saying that he didn't mean what he did. The Elena, attacks him, by getting his receipt and busts him open. Then we get the Raw, after that whole incident. The Usos and Elena, corner Speed. The Speed is just too athletic. Like, he jumps over Elena and tries to escape, but Elena grabs him. Then, Logan, I mean, bruh. Honestly, man, I don't even know what to say. Logan comes in and just shoves Speed into LA9. Theory there rules LA9 over. Speed costs LA9 everything. In this match, obviously the match is meaningless. They raise up Speed hand while they still hold the tag titles. LA9 says that it's gonna be the Usos and him versus the Vision and Astro Speed. Then he called Adam Pearce to make it official. And then we get Adam Pearce, and he starts asking Logan, "Are you ready for this match? You guys want a 6-man tag match?" Logan says he's ready. Speed, says, nah, he doesn't want it. Elena says it's gonna be him and the Usos versus them at Mania. So, yeah, that's